So today we're going to talk about an interesting bark, really. It's called cinnamon bark. And cinnamon is a very, very powerful, herb that you can really use to support your body in many ways. In the discussion that we want to have today in the context of the coronavirus, I want to talk about the power of cinnamon to support your immune health. At a high level, it's anti-fungal, it's antibacterial, it's anti-inflammatory, has a lot of very powerful antioxidant properties. So that's what I want to share with you today, really the power of cinnamon. If you guys want to go to truthfreedomhealth.com, you'll see all my videos. And I did a cool video on how to make chai tea, but one of the ingredients in chai tea is cinnamon. So we're going to talk about cinnamon today. If you go look at the previous videos, we started talking about negative ions. We did a talk on turmeric, garlic, onion, ginger. And today we're actually green tea also. And today we're doing cinnamon. And this is really a public service I want to do because I was so fortunate to get this education. I feel that I should share it. It takes a lot of effort to put these together. So I hope you're going to enjoy this. So let me start by going right to the slide set I put together for you. And as many of you know, when I go over this, I obviously like to share a little bit of background. So you're always up to date on what we're doing. Let me go to the PowerPoint here. Okay, there we go. And what I want to talk about is if you want to know more about what I do now, what I've done in the past, you can go to my personal blog and website, V as in Victor, Shiva.com. You'll find the background of my creating the first email system. It's not the Al Gore story. It's the fact that before I came to MIT, while I was working as a full-time research fellow, starting to do medical research in what is now known as Rutgers Medical School in Newark, New Jersey, I created the first email system. What's really racist are organizations like Wikipedia, who no one should give a penny to. They do not want an outsider like me. They have to try to denigrate people. They locked my page. They don't even allow me to change the page. That's how scared they are of what I have to say. They try to brand you as a conspiracy theorist. Forget the fact I was asked to speak at the MIT presidential lecture. Forget the fact I have a Fulbright. Forget the fact that I have 4 degrees from MIT. I've won every award, was on the front page of MIT for inventing many things. That's how they do it. In the old days, they just shoot people. Today, they try to assassinate people's character, but screw Wikipedia. Do not give them a penny. As I've shared with you, I'm running for US Senate. But one of the, separate from being an educator, I run 3 companies. One of the companies is called Cytosolve. Another company is called Systems Health, where we educate people on the integration of Eastern and Western medicine. And then the other thing I do is I also run a organization, a research and education foundation called Integrative Systems, where we have various projects. But today we're going to focus on Cytosolve. Cytosolve is a very powerful technology that really allows us to eliminate the need for animal testing, but more from a science standpoint, use the computer to model molecular reactions in the body and in cells, so we can actually use the computer, just like we used to build airplanes. In the old days, you threw a test pilot in and you killed them. And then we moved to basically, we build computers on the plane. We use the equations of physics to understand how things work long before we go hurt anyone. And that's what Cytosolve is. It's an equivalent technology for using the computer to model complex diseases, biomolecular function, and then figure out how combinations of herbs or compounds work long before we go down the pipeline. But Cytosolve is really a technology that allows us to create mathematical models. Okay, we don't really make supplements, we don't make vaccines, we don't make pharmaceutical drugs. We actually are a technology company that provides that mathematical infrastructure. And the reason this came out is that if you look at the history of how drug development works, as you're looking in this graph or slide, drug development is a very, very, very time-consuming, shoot-in-the-dark process. It takes 15 years, 13 to 15 years to create a drug, $5 billion. It has to go through all these steps, regulatory steps. You have to do test tube testing, then animal testing, what's called in vivo. Then you have to do phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 clinical trials. And then even if the drug that comes out, it turns out it only works for 10% of the people that it was designed for. And you as a person can sue the pharmaceutical company. And this is what's going on. Pharmaceutical companies, as noted by this purple line, are not doing well. they're crashing and burning because they spend more and more money on finding new drugs, and they're not the FDA, even the corrupt FDA, is even not allowing drugs to be allowed because of their safety problems. So this is why pharmaceutical companies are moving to vaccines. This is why Fauci is important. This is why Bill Gates is part of this. Is why Zuckerberg, who owns Facebook, and him and his wife own one of the biggest $6 billion vaccine foundations. This is where all the collusion comes, because they see vaccines as a multi-trillion-dollar market, because vaccines are not really regulated. There's really no safety assessment, and you can't sue a vaccine company. That's why pharma is moving towards vaccines. Now, in my case, I went in and out of MIT, did many degrees in engineering, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, in scientific visualization. And in 2003, I came back to MIT because I had a deep love of computers and biology, and how to integrate them. And one of the things that was happening in 2003 per this graph was, the irony was, when the Human Genome Project ended, it turns out we only have 20,000 genes, the same number of genes as a worm. So that led to a field in 2003 called systems biology, which said if we're going to understand the whole human, we got to find the interconnections between the genes and the proteins, et cetera, which is what Eastern medicine has been saying, that you have to understand the whole. And as a part of this, the National Science Foundation put forward this challenge, which was, imagine you could mathematically model the whole human cell, all the molecular reactions in the cell. Those of you on Instagram, you can go to YouTube, by the way, and Facebook, and you can watch the slides, or on Periscope. So if you could understand all those interactions, voila, you could use a computer, just like we used to build airplanes, to figure out what works, make the mistakes long before we kill animals or humans. So, and the notion was, if you take something like cancer, take something like immune health, scientists all over the world are doing little experiments. And what they discover are what I'm showing here, these molecular pathways, little pieces of the jigsaw puzzle. They publish them. And some of them can be converted to models, which means computer-based models. But if you wanted to integrate the entire immune system, that was seen as an impossible problem. So what I did was I created a technology called CytoSolve, which allows us to take all those jigsaw puzzle pieces, bring them together, convert them to models, and interconnect them. It's like an erector set program. That's what I created. So CytoSolve, we've been around now for 16 years. I've written papers on it. We validate it. We help a lot of natural medicines people figure out how to combine products that work. Written papers on it. And so if you look at all the literature, let's say take something like immune health and cinnamon, we get all that literature. Then we extract out all those little chemical reactions, connect them together, and then basically put them together either to model them, or as I'm going to do today, to figure out what's actually going on. So CytoSolve, in many ways, like the way we used to build airplanes, where we understand all the physics, we model it on the computer, and then we go to wind tunnel testing long before we do test flights. CytoSolve allows us to do the same thing long before we do test tube stuff, long before we go kill animals. Now, to give you a very simple example of this, imagine that you want to figure out what happens if you're having a curry meal and you're eating turmeric. By the way, turmeric is anti-inflammatory. So what I've done here is we've looked at all the literature, and the outer circle there is a cell wall, the inner circle is a nuclear wall, and we've looked at all the places curcumin, which is the active ingredient in curry, actually connects to all the molecular pathways to figure out how curry works at the body. And then we can mathematically model the same way we've done it. Imagine you're having your curry or your turmeric meal with some red wine. The skin of red grapes contains resveratrol, and we've done the same thing. And then we can literally see what happens when they combine, right? Because remember, food is not just one compound like a drug, it's multiple compounds. And then we could run experiments. So what you're seeing here is I'm running 4 experiments each row. The last column is a marker of inflammation. The higher it is, that means high inflammation. So 0.15, we have high inflammation, no curcumin, no resveratrol. Then I just give curcumin 5 units. You notice the inflammation drops to 0.05. Then I just give resveratrol, it drops from 0.15 to 0.06. But look what happens when I combine them, okay? You get, I reduce the dosage to 3 units of curcumin, 2 units of resveratrol, but the combination gives you, it halves even more than the resveratrol or the curcumin. Quite amazing. This is why food is medicine. So let's talk about cinnamon, all right? I just want to see if people have any questions out there. I think people are following along. Okay. By the way, nice to have you from Tucson. Thank you. Snick say they came to our event in Mattapan. Great. Someone said, you're making me very hungry for some delicious Indian food. Yeah, so look, most traditional foods, people went through thousands of years of experimentation, millions of man hours of research, far long than any clinical trial can do. That's what is so disgusting, so criminal, that people like Fauci do not even discuss in any manner what's going on, with vaccines, okay, at all. That's what really is troublesome to me and most people, who get really concerned about this. Okay, let's now go and back to the slides. Go back here. Okay, so if we're looking here right now, what we see here is, what is cinnamon? First of all, it's a bark, okay? It's used throughout Southeast Asia. Its medicinal use of cinnamon dates back to nearly 4,000 years in both India and Chinese cultures. And it's really the bark, tree, and root, okay? And some people use a cinnamon oil, which also has medicinal benefits, okay? And you can see it, as you see in this picture, it's this brown bark. I have tons of it here. And the Latin name is Cinnamomum xylancum, okay? Xylanicum. So what does cinnamon contain? Well, it has minerals, it has vitamins, it has flavonoids and essential oils. And the flavonoids are very powerful parts of it. So minerals-wise, there are really four major minerals. Calcium is 1 ounce of cinnamon. Look at how much calcium it has, 281 milligrams. Manganese, potassium, and phosphorus, okay? But quite a bit of potassium and quite a bit of calcium. Vitamins, there's really four major vitamins. Vitamin A, as I've talked about, really supports making sure viruses don't get into your cells. Vitamin C, as we know, supports immunomodulation. Vitamin E, and vitamin K. So that's in 1 ounce of cinnamon. Now, there are 7 flavonoids, gosapin, naphthalene, hesperidin, very, very powerful bioflavonoid, hibifolin, hypolatin, oroxidin, and quercetin, which we've talked about before. Now, these act as antioxidants and anti-inflammatory compounds. Remember, oxidizing is what happens when your body starts literally rusting. If you ever see your bike rusting, that's called oxidation. Antioxidant is where you're taking off that rust, and anti-oxidizing compounds take the quote-unquote rust off in your system. And then you have anti-inflammatory compounds, which lower the inflammation. So here, I know most of you, some of you may love organic chemistry. It's a great field. But here you're seeing really the structures of those essential oils. So whenever you see that ring structure, that's a benzene structure. So you have cinnamaldehyde, you have cinnamyl acetate, you have cinnamic acid, and you have eugenol. Eugenol shows up in a number of places, but those are the 4 essential oils. And there's 41 essential oils found in cinnamon. These are 4 of them. And the major essential oil compounds with medicinal effects, as I said, were cinnamaldehyde, cinnamic acid, cinnamyl acetate, and eugenol. Okay, so those are the things we're going to come back to. Now, cinnamon, we can go to many things. Today's talk is really on the immune boosting, but cinnamon has some very amazing positive effects in helping weight loss, diabetes, lowering blood sugar levels, lowering cholesterol levels, lowering the onset of any type of chronic illness. It reduces inflammation, treats menstrual cramps, aids digestion, chai tea we added, as we mentioned, boosts functioning of the brain, and has antibacterial and antifungal effects. So we're going to focus on the boost immune system and the antifungal and antibacterial effects. So, by the way, everything I'm sharing with you is not something I'm making up. This is culled again from all that literature that we're sort of, distilling. Now, I always like to do this so you guys get armed with knowledge. The immune system that the establishment people like Fauci are talking about is a model of the immune system that goes back almost 100 years. It's a 2-box model. Some virus comes in, some bacteria, some pathogen. It affects your nose, your eyes, goes into your stomach, your mucous membranes, on your skin, your ears. That's called the innate immune system. There are a lot of cells there in that innate immune system which try to take out that pathogen using like an artillery, just firing everywhere. Well, that's your innate immune system. But your adaptive immune system, which is the second box that they use, is the part of your immune system is like Navy sharpshooters, which try to create one antibody in the case of the virus to take it out. This is their basis for vaccines. I'm going to, subvert your innate immune system and go to your, basically subvert nature and go right into your bloodstream and inject you with something. And if you get those antibodies, you're okay. Well, about 6 months ago, I was asked, so anyone who questions my credentials, you have a lot of unfortunate people saying, oh, he's just a brilliant scientist or a computer scientist. He knows nothing about medicine. No, MIT's Department of Biological Engineering is rated as one of the big #1 biomedical departments in the world. So my PhD's in biological engineering. I'm considered one of the leading guys on the immune system. And just by a point of fact, I was invited to give the distinguished lecture at the National Science Foundation on a modern view of the immune system. And this is what I presented. This is sort of the 23rd century view of the immune system, where it's not that the innate and the adaptive, you have this interferon system, which is a missing link. And that interferon system is extremely important for creating viral interferons separate from antibodies, which when you get a virus, your body not only gets the ability to fight that virus in a healthy immune system, but also fight thousands of other viruses. It's as though your body's waiting to be infected so you get stronger. Okay, that's the interferon system. We also have all the gut bacteria known as a microbiome. We have about 60 trillion bacteria. Then we have 380 trillion viruses in our body. Okay, viruses live with us. We're a walking germ factory. And that entire microbiome, in the gut is interconnected to our brain. So our brain, above, higher brain, lower brain, or lower brain, however we want to subjectively look at it, we have two brains that work together. But this is a modern view of the immune system. And what that informs us is that one size does not fit all. What you need may be different than what I need. As I've stated at the outset on the vaccine issue, I'm not pro or anti-vax. What I am saying is a government telling you what you should do is not only a violation of freedom, but it's anti-health. Because all of us are unique. We need to find the right medicine for the right person at the right time. So when it comes to immune health, cinnamon works in 3 ways. First of all, it modulates the immune response via anti-inflammatory mechanisms. Look, a virus or bacteria or pathogen is not what kills you. What kills you is your weakened and dysfunctional immune system acting haywire, attacking itself. Overinflammation, right? Cytokine storms. So cinnamon, first of all, modulates the immune response, like putting, like I said, shock absorbers. But then cinnamon also has been shown to really be able to knock out bacteria, knock out fungi. And the this is something what they've noticed is microorganisms do not develop resistance to cinnamon. Okay? It's not true with vaccines. Vaccines, you got to give this vaccine and that vaccine. They're constantly playing musical chairs because these things develop resistance. So let's go down to the molecular systems approach here. So when you have inflammation, this leads to harmful and disproportionate immune response. Look, if you hit your hand with if you hit your finger with a hammer, you're supposed to get inflammation. So all those white blood cells rush in and take care of your body. The issue is if your immune system overreacts, it starts attacking your own body. Okay? So what cinnamon active compounds like cinnamonaldehyde have been shown to do is they've been shown to inhibit enzymes such as COX-2 and INOS that are involved in inflammatory signaling. So what you're seeing here is when you have, so what happens is cinnamonaldehyde inhibits the transcription factor NF-kappa beta, which is in your body. It's a very important transcription factor that's responsible for the transcription of making inflammatory genes. So when you turn on NF-kappa beta, that starts turning on inflammatory genes, which is what leads to all these components, like in this case, TNF-alpha and IL-8 that create the cytokine storm, which means now you need some of that, but if there's too much, you start attacking your system. So look what cinnamonaldehyde does. It stops, it suppresses the NF-kappa beta and what's called AP1. AP1 and NF-kappa beta, they basically affect the COX-2 and INOS pathways, which make sure that you're not producing PGE2 and nitric oxide, right? So without that, NF-kappa beta and AP1 create COX-2 and INOS on the right side, which create PGE2 and NO, which increases inflammation. Again, a drug like ibuprofen, guess what it does? It too knocks out COX-2, but it causes side effects. But in this case, you don't have any of these side effects, okay? So this is what it does to knock down inflammation. And the other thing it does, it lowers the cytokine storm because the NF-kappa beta is the one that fuels TNF alpha, which is causes a cytokine storm, and IL-8. And as you can see here, the cinnamonaldehyde suppresses NF kappa beta. Okay, so that's what the molecular systems analysis shows. Now, so I said that's one of the pieces, right? Immunomodulation and lowering that cytokine storm, being an anti-inflammatory, but cinnamon also has another very powerful benefit, antifungal, okay? The cinnamon essential oil, right, is effective against several types of fungi. Aspergillus flavus, which causes rot in grain, for example. So when I was growing up, for example, when my grandmother bought, a bag of rice, guess what they would do? They would throw some cloves in that rice, some clove, and well as cinnamon sticks, okay? Because so it wouldn't caught rot in the grain, and you just put those sticks in. If you have a bag of rice, I recommend you do that. Asparagus fumigatus causes allergic reactions, so cinnamon is effective against that. Trichophyton rubrum, which causes athlete's foot, okay? And candida, which causes genital and oral infections. So those are 4 different types of fungi that cinnamon is very powerful at. The other thing is fungi do not develop resistance to cinnamon, okay? That's very good to know. So use cinnamon, they don't get resistance. Basically, you're knocking them out, and I'll show you how. And the antifungal systems mechanism of cinnamon is the way it works is if you look at the fungi, it really disrupts the wall. So it breaks down the wall, right? That's what cinnamon does. The cinnamon oil, the membrane damage and the release of intracellular content. So the cinnamon oil breaks the wall. It's like a battering ram. It breaks up the wall of the fungi. So again, you can see it as antifungal activity by disrupting the cell membrane. The other piece that cinnamon has antibacterial activity. And look at all the bacteria it's been shown to be effective against Escherichia E. coli, right, which causes diarrhea and UTI if you don't drink enough water. If women are listening, Staphylococcus, right, which is staph. Listeria, which causes listeriosis. Salmonella causes diarrhea. This is why in many traditional diets, you always have cinnamon. If I make some chicken, I'll put in cinnamon or lamb. I'm always adding cinnamon. It's a part of many of the foods that I make. Or Porphyromonas gingivalis, which causes periodontal disease, okay? So look at all these different bacteria that cinnamon nails, okay? It's quite extraordinary. And then bacteria also do not develop resistance to cinnamon. Now, how does this work? Well, remember I said the cinnamonaldehyde, that also causes several things, okay? It damages the cell membrane of the bacteria, leading to leakage and cell death. But it also inhibits what's called a Z-ring formation, which stops cell division. What happens is when a bacteria starts dividing, okay, it basically forms in the middle of that division process this thing called a Z-ring. And what cinnamon does, it inhibits that formation, and that stops and reduces the virulence of the bacteria. It also inhibits what's called adenine triphosphate, ATP production, which is the energy currency of the bacteria. All ATP, if you remember from biology, is like the fuel that powers cells and bacteria. So cinnamonaldehyde, again, from a molecular system standpoint, first of all, it attacks the cell wall of the bacteria. It disrupts the Z-ring, so it can't really divide. And it also inhibits ATP production. Quite amazing, okay? So there you go. So how much should you take, right? So most of you are wondering, well, how much cinnamon should I take? How should I include it in our food? Whenever I did previous videos, people would be sending me lots and lots of messages. So I thought we just incorporate it here. It saves my time and gives you information that everyone had been asking. So maintenance, according to Huss et al. In 2002, is about 120 milligrams a day to 6 grams. You can go up, to that. I mean, I use a lot of cinnamon. You can grind it. It's in that range or more pretty much every day. Now for wound healing, you can do a cinnamon ointment. Mohammadi in 2014 showed this. So it has powerful features for wound healing. For sugar control, those people who have diabetes issues, blood sugar levels, 1 to 6 grams per day. That's according to Mang et al. In 2006. Now, if you have antimicrobial activity, fungus, bacteria, Wang et al. In 2012 said about 3 capsules a day, which is about 18 milligrams, which is very little, okay? Cinnamon oil and 9 grams pojo stem oil, which is also from there. Okay, so that's what a combination of cinnamon oil as well as pogo cinnamon oil. But the bottom line is what you're saying is my view is that you should really include this in your foods. If you go on to truthfreedomhealth.com, you'll find the video that I did on chai tea that you can use. You can add, if you don't want to add milk, you can add almond milk, but you guys may want to check that out. Okay, it's a really cool video. I'm actually making it. A lot of people have gotten great comments. People love the tea, etc. Cinnamon is the other things we talked about, hundreds of thousands of papers, but cinnamon is still quite well researched, nearly 8,787 research articles, about 100 clinical trials, and over 120 years of scientific research, okay? And it's quite fascinating, again, Fauci, the CDC. By the way, the CDC finally put out a notice about a week ago saying everything I'd said, vitamin D, C, zinc, iodine, and vitamin A, the power of them to support your immune system, but they sort of hid it because they knew it's true. So it was sort of one of those CYA communications they did. But again, you can see cinnamon is very well studied. Why aren't these scientists, why aren't these researchers talking about this? Because it doesn't produce some quick cash or the billions or trillions from vaccines. Now, many of you know that, so that's the Western systems biology approach. Now I can put on my Eastern and my engineering systems approach. And if we go to, for example, what I shared with you earlier, if we look at it from a your body, your system approach, as I talked about before, right? From a standpoint of really trying to understand the body as a system. If you remember, you can use the your body, your system tool, which I talked about earlier. And, you don't have to get the tool, but just to give you the analysis, everybody has a certain system that's denoted by that red dot that I'm sharing there, okay? And which you can find by answering the questions. And the black dot is how you deviate it. So the goal is to bring the black to the red dot. Well, how do you do that? Well, different foods can move that in different directions. If you ever sailed, you're trying to figure out vectors and how to move, in the ocean. But that's what food is. Food has forces to it. Food has the forces of increasing transport, conversion, and storage. Conversion is digestive processes. Storage is storage of memory, storage of fat, right? Transport is movement. So what's interesting is if you understand this, and you can go read the book, System and Revolution, to get details of it. But if you understand that, you'll see foods themselves, separate from the molecular systems analysis, also literally have force to them. And they force your body to move in different directions. Okay, so in this case, cinnamon lowers transport, right? So it lowers motion, okay, which is transport. That's this. It increases conversion, supports digestive processes, burning of fat. Burning is conversion. And it lowers, right, storage. That means it can bring down weight. That's what storage means, right? In the Indian system, we call kapha. Conversion is called pitta. In the Indian system, it's transport's called vata. But from an engineering standpoint, you can look at it as transport, conversion, and storage. And this was one of the parts of my Fulbright research where I connected Eastern and Western systems of medicine. In fact, several years after I did this for my PhD work, I actually took time off and I went back to India, as I mentioned, and I spent time really trying to understand the integration of Eastern and Western medicine. And that's how I created an institute that a number of you have asked me to mention this in emails. Dr. Shiva, please mention this. I created an institute called Systems Health. And Systems Health is a research and educational institute where you can actually learn how your body is a system. You can take courses, okay? You can start with just System and Revolution and the book, but you can actually get certified. There's an online laboratory, about 10 hours of course material. You get actually a certification. If you want to take the advanced program, a master's program, there's about 20 different awesome videos. You get all 3 books and you can get certified as a Systems Health practitioner. So anyway, in closing, when you really think about the body as a system, you can see how cinnamon supports the immune system in very, very powerful ways. So I've shared with you from the Western standpoint, I've shared with you from the Eastern standpoint. And in closing, what you want to understand is that there's 4 takeaways here. Cinnamon inhibits inflammatory enzymes, the COX-2 and the INOS, thereby controlling your runaway immune system, modulating that cytokine storm. Cinnamon directly kills bacteria and fungi. It's very, very important. directly kills bacteria and fungi. And cinnamon also inhibits those inflammatory cytokines. And then finally, the microbes, be it the fungi or the bacteria, have shown not to be able to deliver resistance to cinnamon. That's a good thing, okay? Which means they don't mutate, they can't. It is such a powerful chemical that it helps you in many, many multiplicity of ways. So there you go, everyone. That's really the talk on cinnamon. So I hope this has been helpful. We'll continue the series. I believe tomorrow I'm going to do, based on your feedback, hello from Riyadh, hello to people in Minnesota. So I just want to recognize people from Riyadh and Minnesota. Welcome to the show. So what we want to do, sure, where do I find a recipe for chai tea? Go to truthfreedomhealth.com and you'll see a bunch of videos there. So the key thing is, many of you have been writing me emails, and if you want me to analyze something else for immune health, you can send an email to V as in Victor A. Let me put my email here. This comes right to me, by the way. bhshiva@bhshiva.com. Send me a note. So one of you wanted me to do black cumin seed oil. That's what I'll be doing tomorrow. Just go check out black cumin seed oil. It's been used for centuries. Amazing, amazing oil. You know, I take about a teaspoon a day. You can throw it in smoothies. It's just, it has so many incredible properties, particularly for immune health, and I'll talk about that tomorrow. Let's take a few questions. Thank you. Hello from New Jersey. You're most welcome. Organic irregular cinnamon, how much? Well, someone is asking how much cinnamon should they take? Well, let me go here. Since you missed that, this is what I went over right here. You know, it's about 120 milligrams to 6 grams a day. You mean, go online and look at what 6 grams is in terms of teaspoon. You know, I typically take the whole cinnamon, I'll crush it up into a powder and I'll add it to chai tea, I'll add it to curries, etc. But it's about 120 milligrams to 6 grams a day. That's from the gram standpoint. You can do a quick online search to find the calculation of how much that is. Let's see what else we have. Definitely organic where you can get it. Thank you from Omaha. I'm buying organic cinnamon powder tomorrow. Great. And by the way, you know, you can use it in many ways. In the chai tea recipe that I give, I mean, I'll give you the quick version of it. You take water, you know, you boil the water. Then as the water is boiling, I typically take fresh ginger, peel the skin, you know, chop up ginger. You know, if you're going to make, let's say, chai tea for around 4 people, you want to put about 4 to 6 cups of water. Nice big chunk of ginger, which we've talked about. You take the skin off, chop it up, and let it boil in there, you know, for about 5-10 minutes. Let it keep boiling. And while that's boiling, about 5-10 minutes later, you can get some good organic black tea. Throw that in there, you know, about 3-4 teaspoons, you know, or larger, so how strong you want it. And as that's boiling, then you can take cinnamon in a mortar and pestle, put a couple of nice big pieces in. You can add more as you want. You're not going to hurt yourself. These aren't drugs. You can put cloves. You can put some anise. You can put a little bit of pepper if you like it, cardamom, crush it all up, and then you throw that in. Let that boil for a little while. And that'll go on for maybe another 4 or 5 minutes. And then you take, if you can get whole organic milk, add it in there. And when that's all boiling together, when that's boiling, first, you know, if you put cold milk, it'll cool down. And then it'll start to, just as it's about to boil over, you want to turn it off. Now, if you want to add a sweetener, if you like sweetener, you can use jaggery, Jaggery. It's like the wholesome, it's like molasses. Or you can add, you know, organic honey. That's what I typically do. If you don't want to add the milk, you can put other types of milk. But the cinnamon is an important component of that. Someone is saying, what type of cinnamon is best? Well, you can get the cinnamon oil. That's very potent. Be careful with these essential oils. A little does a lot. But I typically get the whole bark, you know, and I get it, you know, fresh, organic, and I mash it up. Yes, someone just said doTERRA. Yeah, I've been using a lot of cinnamon. doTERRA produces. Yes, in fact, Star Angel, doTERRA is actually, interesting enough, they approached us because they wanted to understand one of their products, including cinnamon, and we did some great research for them. Okay, great company, very dedicated to really good products. I'm not here to pitch companies, but everything I've found out about them, really good oils, very much into organic oils. Hold on one second, guys. I'm just going to turn this off. Someone's calling me. All right. So anyway, I want to thank everyone. I hope this is valuable. Again, everyone remember, it's about truth, freedom, and health. Let's move beyond black and white. Let's be the light and win this fight. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a great evening. Be well.